Have you ever tried to force yourself to work? Yeah, only to feel like you're staring at a wall or a blank screen. That, my friend, is not laziness. That is a measurable buildup of glutamate in your prefrontal cortex, and pushing through it is actually going to damage your brain. You've been staring at the same paragraph or the same blank screen for, 7 minutes? You know the words. Your eyes have moved across them, but nothing's landing. Your brain has already checked out. It's 3 tabs deep into a conversation that happened 3 days ago. And the harder you push, the faster it runs. This is what forced focus actually does to you at a neural level, and it's the opposite of what you think.
Your Success DNA podcast. Your success is in your DNA.
All right, what is up? What is up? What the hell is up, my success seekers? Let's get stuck right in, shall we? Most people believe focus is all about willpower. Show up, sit down, push harder. Yeah, but neuroscience just revealed something that I think reframes the entire productivity conversation, and once you understand it, you're never going to approach a task the same way again. Your brain isn't lazy when it resists. It's protecting you from something very, very real. Here's where it starts. When you force focus, you're activating something called the anterior cingulate cortex. That's the part of your brain that detects errors and conflict. Researchers studying cognitive conflict use something called the Stroop task to measure this exact mechanism. And this is where your brain has to override one response to produce another. And what they find in this test is consistent. The anterior cingulate lights up under forced, misaligned effort. Think of it like this, like a smoke detector. It's supposed to go off when there's actual danger. But when you force yourself to focus on something misaligned with your actual priorities, that smoke detector, the beep, 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 starts to scream. And it starts to scream constantly, and your brain interprets that screaming as a threat. What happens next is the part that most productivity advice gets completely wrong. Your brain doesn't give up. It enters a state that neurologists call ego depletion. But that name, it's a bit misleading as it sounds voluntary, because it's not. When your anterior cingulate is firing on overdrive, your prefrontal cortex, that's the rational part that makes decisions, the seat of your working memory, it starts dysregulating a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Yeah, we've all heard of that one, haven't we? You're not losing motivation. You're literally disrupting the neurochemistry required for you to stay focused. And it's not just dopamine. Norepinephrine, the third leg of your attention neurochemistry, alongside with dopamine and acetylcholine, that all starts to destabilize too. This makes it even harder to sustain directed attention. Your brain is disrupting its own fuel supply the harder you push it to pay attention. This is why things like the Pomodoro technique that we talked about a couple of episodes ago works for some people and destroys others. 25 minutes of forced focus sounds reasonable on paper. But if those 25 minutes are spent on a task that conflicts with your deeper sense of purpose, you're not building a habit. You're building neural scar tissue. You're training your brain to associate focused work with internal conflict. Now, here's what makes this even more layered. Your brain's resistance to forced focus is not a bug. It's actually a feature in the system. That feeling of rebellion, you come here for that rebellious side of me. That feeling of rebellion, that's your brain's way of saying something is misaligned. The problem is not your brain. The problem is that you've been taught to override what it's telling you. And every time you do, you're weakening the signal. You're making it harder to hear what actually matters. Yeah, there is a mechanism that most people are going to miss entirely. When you force focus, despite this internal conflict, you trigger what's called the default mode network to activate even more intensely. This is the part of your brain that handles mind wandering, self-referential thinking and deep existential questions. Yeah. You know that feeling when you're supposed to be working, but you're suddenly thinking about your childhood, or maybe you're replaying some awkward conversation you had way back when? That's your default mode network screaming for attention. That, my friends, is not a distraction. It's your brain trying to process something important that your forced focus has been suppressing. And here's the cruel irony in all of this. The moment that you stop fighting your brain and actually listen to what it needs, focus becomes almost effortless. Not because your willpower increased, but because the internal conflict decreased or even dissolves away. Your anterior cingulate calms down because there's no detected conflict going on. Your dopamine stabilizes. Your neuroepinephrine steadies. Your prefrontal cortex can finally do its job, which is holding working information in your working memory, making complex decisions, and executing those sequence tasks that you've been trying to get done. And it can do it without hemorrhaging resources. You don't feel the friction. Researchers who studied this state have a name for it, and it's called flow state. Yeah, you've heard of this, haven't you? But did you know about the rest of it? No, they don't talk about that. That flow state, that condition of effortless, sustained engagement is not mythical. It's what your brain looks like when forced focus stops and aligned focus takes over. Let that sink in for a minute. This is where the deeper truth lives. And most productivity systems refuse to touch it because, let's be honest, it's a little uncomfortable. Real focus, honest flow state focus requires alignment. There, I said it. And alignment requires you to answer questions most ambiguous people are going to get up and run away from. Questions like, are you actually doing what you want to do? Or are you doing what you think you should do? Sometimes there's a difference, and sometimes there's a massive difference, and your brain knows that there's a difference instantly. Let's say you're a parent trying to build a side hustle while managing full-time work and family responsibilities. Each productivity hack in existence is going to tell you to protect your focus time, block it out on the calendar, eliminate distractions, use focus apps, sit down at 5 a.m. before everyone else wakes up. And sure, you can do all of that. You can white knuckle your way through another 90 minutes. But if a part of your brain is screaming while you're stealing time from your family, or that this business idea isn't actually aligned with what you want 5 years from now, that, my friend, is not a focus problem. That is an alignment problem. And no Pomodoro timer fixes an alignment problem. I don't care how many times you do it. The neuroscience out there reveals something a little darker. When you consistently override your brain's signals about misalignment, you're going to start experiencing decision fatigue in everything, not just work, everything. Because your brain has learned that its input really doesn't matter. You don't give a shit about what it says, that your intuition is just wrong. Yeah, it's just wrong. That the only thing that matters is pushing through. So what does it do? Yeah, it stops offering guidance. It stops sending you those gut feelings it used to get. And what happens is you become numb to yourself, and the numbness spreads. Yeah, this is worth noting for anyone who's ever wondered whether they might have attention difficulties, whether it's ADHD or just chronic mental overload, because the neural mechanisms look remarkably similar from the outside. Forced focus under misalignment produces the same scattered, depleted state that attention deficit patterns produce. Let that sink in for a second, yeah? The difference is in the origin, but the lesson here is the same. Pushing harder on a brain that's signaling resistance does not work. Sorry, it just doesn't. This is why so many ambitious people report feeling empty even after they achieve the goals that they have forced themselves toward. They didn't achieve the goals despite the internal conflict. They achieved them while systematically deafening themselves to what actually matters. Here's what actually works. And it sounds too simple because we've been taught that productivity requires suffering and pain. Yeah, it doesn't. Before you force focus on anything, I want you to answer these 3 questions. And man, please be brutally honest with yourself. First, is this aligned with who I want to become or who I think I should be? Not in 5 years, right this second. Be specific in that answer. Second, if I complete this task perfectly, will I feel energized or depleted? And notice the word depleted, because completing the wrong task perfectly is going to leave you empty. And we all know about empty vessels, right? Okay. Third, what is my brain actually trying to tell me by resisting this? That third question is the one that nobody asks. Your brain resists for reasons. It just doesn't go, yeah, I don't think I want to do this for no reason at all. Sometimes it's protecting you against wasted time. Sometimes it's telling you the task is poorly structured. Sometimes it's telling you that you are prioritizing the wrong thing entirely. So I want you to remember one damn word. listen with both ears and your heart. Okay. Now, once you've answered these questions and you've confirmed genuine alignment, something is going to shift. You're not forcing focus anymore. You're channeling it. And there's a biological difference. Your anterior cingulate calms down because there's no detected conflict inside you. Your dopamine stabilizes because your brain recognizes that you are moving towards something that actually matters. And you've aligned yourself to it. Your prefrontal cortex can do complex work. It can hold more in working memory. It can do sequence decisions more accurately without dysregulating any of its resources. You don't feel the friction anymore, right? So here's where it's going to get a little bit complicated. And this is the part that makes people slightly uncomfortable. Sometimes, even after all of this alignment work, you are still going to need to do things that aren't immediately energizing. Taxes, for me, God, I hate it. Administrative work, difficult conversations. Yeah. The mundane architecture that holds, I don't know, ambitious projects together. Okay, I've got to do this. Otherwise, my project is going to fall apart. Yeah. This is where most people get confused. They think alignment means every single task should feel good. No, that's not what I'm saying, because let's be honest, it just doesn't. Real alignment means you understand why the unglamorous work matters within the context of what it is you're building. A parent or an entrepreneur understands that the boring financial spreadsheet matters because it protects the family stability or the business stability. An entrepreneur understands that the tedious customer support email matters because it's building trust. It's building that relationship. An artist understands that the technical skill building matters because it's the foundation for the creative work that actually fulfills them. When you understand the why at that level, a different kind of focus is going to emerge. It's not effortless. I don't want you to think that, because that's a lie. That's a lie that the productivity culture sells you with each one of those $1,000 courses. But it is sustainable. It doesn't deplete you the same way forced focus does, because your brain isn't experiencing the conflict. Your brain is now serving something that it believes in. There's a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine that floods your brain when you're focused on something meaningful. It works in concert with dopamine and norepinephrine. That becomes the full triad that your attention system depends on. Acetylcholine is slower, it's deeper, and it lasts longer. It's what enables sustained attention without exhaustion. But at the same time, here's the trap. Acetylcholine only floods your system when your brain has confirmed that what you're doing is actually meaningful to you. Not productive, meaningful. Your brain, let's be honest, can tell the difference, and it is going to be ruthlessly honest about it with you. This is why the person who meditates for 10 minutes with genuine presence accomplishes more meaningful work than the person who force focuses for 3 hours while fighting their own mind. A meditator's brain is coherent. A forced focuser's brain, it's literally at war with itself. And we all know war is expensive, economically as well as neurologically speaking. So here's the uncomfortable question that sits at the end of all of this. What is the gap between who you are and who you want to become? Isn't a willpower problem? What if it's just an alignment problem? What if you've been working so hard on focus techniques that you've never actually stopped to ask the question whether you're focused on the right things? This is the thought that keeps ambitious people awake. Because once you ask it, you can't unask it. You can't go back to mindlessly applying productivity hacks and pretending the internal conflict doesn't matter anymore. You have to actually look at your life and ask, am I doing what I want? Or am I doing what I think I should want? And that question, I'm going to be honest, doesn't come with a clear answer, because sometimes what you think you should want is actually what you need. Sometimes the discomfort is growth. Sometimes the resistance is fear, not wisdom. Your brain can lie to you too. It tells you to avoid challenges. It tells you that the easy path is the aligned path, and it will rationalize laziness as self-listening. So the real work isn't building better focus. It's developing the discernment to know the difference between resistance that's protecting you and resistance that's holding you back. And that, my friends, it takes time. It takes honesty. And I don't think that can be hacked. I haven't found a way. If you have, please drop me a comment below. I'd be interested in hearing it. Your brain isn't your enemy when it refuses to focus. It is your guide, but only if you're brave enough to listen to it. Now, look, if what I broke down here about your brain maybe has hit something inside you, and if you're sitting there realizing you've been at war with your own mind for months, maybe years, and you've been calling it discipline, you don't need one more episode. You need more than just one episode. And this is exactly the kind of thing we go deeper into every week in the Unleashing Your Success DNA. It's not fluff. It's not another productivity hack. It's real rewiring for the mindset, the habits, and the identity shift that it takes to stop fighting yourself and start building the life that you actually want. So if you're done white knuckling your way through a life that isn't yours, go ahead and subscribe at yoursuccessdna.com, and the link will be down in the show notes. Look, it's free, it's weekly, and it might just be the mirror that you have been avoiding. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, listen, this is where I bring in the Whiskered Wisdom for you each week. And here's the truth that nobody is going to put on a motivational poster. Maybe I should start my own line of rebel motivation posters, anti-motivational posters, right? Your brain was never broken. It was never lazy, and it was never the enemy. It was the only honest thing in the room. Yeah, there it is right there. That's a poster. Every time you forced your way through misalignment and you called it grit, your brain was the one voice telling you the truth, and you drowned it out because you were taught that resistance meant weakness. It doesn't. Sometimes resistance is wisdom wearing a disguise. Your brain isn't sabotaging you. It's probably the last honest voice in a life full of should. So here's your action I want you to take this week. And I want you to do this before you touch your phone tomorrow morning, before the emails, before the to-do list. Sit down with a blank page and write one sentence. The task I keep avoiding is avoiding me because blank. Fill in the blank. Don't overthink it. Let your brain finish that sentence for you. Write down the first thing that pops into your head. The answer is the beginning of the discernment I was just talking about. The difference between resistance protecting you and resistance holding you back. You won't get the full picture in that first sitting, but you'll get the first honest signal that you've listened to in a long time. Here's what I need you to walk away with today. Focus was never about forcing anything. It was never about pushing harder. It was never about sitting longer or white knuckling your way to some finish line that doesn't even feel like your finish line. Focus, real, honest to goodness focus, the kind that doesn't burn you out, comes from alignment. From literally listening to the brain you've been overriding for months, maybe even for years, heck, probably for decades. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not even behind. You've just been arguing with your own guide instead of following it. If this episode cracks something open for you, do me a favor. Share it with someone that you know has been white-knuckling their way through life, through a life that might not be theirs. And then drop a comment telling me what your brain's been trying to tell you all along. Go ahead. Go listen to yourself for once. And while you're doing that, think successfully and take action.
Thanks for listening to Your Success DNA podcast. Whether you're starting out or you're a seasoned entrepreneur, we have the tools and inspiration that you need to take your life to the next level. So stay tuned for more game-changing advice in our upcoming episodes. And hey, before you go, a quick reminder to check out our past episodes of Your Success DNA for more inspiring stories and practical advice. And if you've loved what you heard, leave us a review and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. Let's all level up our lives together, shall we? Remember, your success is in your DNA.